You never hear the one that gets you. That's not a figure of speech. A nuclear detonation travels faster than the sound it makes. If you're close enough to hear it, you're already gone. If you're far enough to survive the blast, what comes next is what this video is about. Because the bomb itself isn't the most dangerous part of a nuclear war. What follows it is. In the next 15 minutes, I'm going to walk you through the complete scientific timeline of a nuclear exchange, from the moment the first missile launches to what the world looks like a year later. The physics, the fallout, the collapse, and the things that actually give you a chance at surviving it. Before we talk about what happens, we need to understand where we actually are, because most people's mental model of nuclear war is stuck somewhere in the 1980s. The reality in 2025 is more complicated and in some ways more dangerous. Approximately 12,500 held by 9 nations. Russia holds roughly 5,580. The United States holds 5,044. China is rapidly expanding its arsenal toward an estimated 1,500 by 2035. Russia and the US each keep roughly 1,500 warheads on hair-trigger alert, ready to launch within minutes of a detection order. As few as 100 nuclear detonations, less than 1% of the global arsenal, is enough to trigger the atmospheric effects that scientists call nuclear winter. We have 12,500. The doctrine that has kept nuclear weapons from being used since 1945 is called mutually assured destruction, MAD. The logic is brutal and simple. If using nuclear weapons guarantees your own destruction, no rational actor uses them. But the word rational is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence. We are not living in a world without nuclear risk. We are living in a world that has simply gotten comfortable with it. Nuclear war doesn't start with an explosion. It starts with a decision, and that decision happens faster than most people can process. Modern intercontinental ballistic missiles travel at roughly 15,000 miles per hour. A missile launched from Russia reaches the continental United States in approximately 30 minutes. A submarine-launched missile, fired from closer range, can arrive in as little as 6 minutes. The President of the United States has roughly 6 to 12 minutes to decide whether to authorize a retaliatory launch after a detection alert. That window includes the time to verify the alert, receive briefings, and make a decision that affects every living thing on the planet. There have been at least 6 documented incidents where nuclear launch protocols were nearly triggered by false alarms, including a 1983 Soviet incident where Lieutenant Colonel Stanislav Petrov unilaterally decided not to report what appeared to be an incoming US strike. He was right. The sensors were wrong. His personal judgment prevented nuclear war. One person, one decision, the entire planet. A single modern nuclear warhead, a 1 megaton device, detonates with the energy of roughly 80 Hiroshima bombs simultaneously. The effects happen in distinct rings, complete vaporization, nothing survives. Temperatures reach 27 million degrees Fahrenheit at the center, hotter than the surface of the sun. Overpressure wave destroys all structures. Winds exceed 600 miles per hour. Survival probability near zero. Thermal pulse ignites everything flammable simultaneously. Firestorms, self-sustaining fire systems with their own wind patterns, can burn for days. Lethal radiation exposure for the unprotected. Effects include acute radiation syndrome, internal bleeding, immune system failure, death within days to weeks depending on exposure level. Now multiply that by hundreds of warheads. A full nuclear exchange between the US and Russia would involve an estimated 3,000 to 4,000 detonations. The primary targets are military installations, government centers, communication infrastructure, and major population centers. Within 24 hours, hundreds of millions of people are dead. The blast is the beginning, not the end. Nuclear fallout, radioactive particles carried by wind and deposited across vast geographic areas, is what kills the people who survived the initial exchange. Fallout from a single ground-level detonation can render thousands of square miles uninhabitable. The most dangerous window is the first 48 hours, when radiation levels are highest. The rule survivors need to know is this: get inside, stay tuned. Those 4 words from FEMA are backed by physics. Every hour you stay sheltered reduces your radiation exposure dramatically. Fallout follows the 7 to 10 rule. For every 7-fold increase in time after detonation, radiation intensity decreases by a factor of 10. After 49 hours, it's 100 times less intense than at 7 hours. After 2 weeks, most areas outside the immediate blast zones become survivable. But here's what makes a full nuclear exchange categorically different from a single detonation. The scale of fallout overwhelms any ability to shelter, treat, or respond. Emergency systems, hospitals, communication infrastructure, all of it is destroyed or inaccessible. This is the phase that most people don't talk about, and it's the one that poses the greatest threat to human survival as a species. When cities burn, and hundreds of cities burning simultaneously is what a full nuclear exchange looks like, they inject enormous quantities of black carbon soot into the upper stratosphere. Unlike lower atmosphere smoke, which gets rained out within days, stratospheric soot stays suspended for years. It blocks sunlight. A full-scale nuclear exchange between the US and Russia would inject an estimated 150 million tons of soot into the stratosphere. Scientists at Rutgers University modeled the result. Average global surface temperatures drop by 8 to 10 degrees Celsius within weeks. In the interior of continents, drops of 20 to 30 degrees Celsius are projected. Global agricultural systems would fail within the first year. The combination of temperature drop, reduced sunlight, and disrupted precipitation patterns would eliminate viable growing seasons across most of the northern hemisphere for 3 to 10 years. This is the scenario that prompted Carl Sagan and a group of atmospheric scientists to coin the term nuclear winter in 1983. 40 years of subsequent research has consistently supported the core finding. A large-scale nuclear war doesn't just kill the people in the blast zones, it kills the global food system. And through it, the majority of the human population, including nations that were never targeted by a single warhead. You can survive the bomb. You cannot survive a decade without a growing season, unless you're prepared for something most humans have never had to consider. The world that emerges from the first 6 months of a nuclear exchange is unrecognizable. Major population centers in the northern hemisphere are gone or uninhabitable. The survivors, largely people who were far from targets, underground, or in remote areas, emerge into a landscape defined by 3 things: radiation, cold, and the complete absence of functioning civilization. Supply chains don't exist. Governments either don't exist or lack the ability to project authority beyond their immediate perimeter. The internet is down, banking is down. Every system that modern life depends on has been severed simultaneously. Food stores begin to run out within weeks. The first wave of deaths after the initial strikes is from starvation, exposure, and untreated injury. In the densely populated areas of Europe and North America, population estimates from researchers at Princeton's program on science and global security suggest that within 6 months, 70 to 90% of the pre-war population in targeted regions would be dead. Here's what almost no one talks about. The southern hemisphere has a real survival advantage in a nuclear war scenario. The majority of nuclear targets, military bases, population centers, industrial infrastructure are in the northern hemisphere. Fallout patterns are largely constrained by hemisphere due to atmospheric circulation patterns. Nations like New Zealand, Australia, Argentina, and parts of sub-Saharan Africa would face nuclear winter effects, reduced sunlight, disrupted agriculture, but not direct targeting or the worst fallout contamination. These regions represent what some researchers call the refugia zones, places where human civilization might maintain a foothold through the worst of it. A 2023 study from the University of Otago found that New Zealand, with its temperate climate, existing agricultural base, and geographic isolation, represents one of the best-positioned nations on Earth to survive and eventually rebuild after a global nuclear exchange. For those who survive the immediate aftermath, year 1 is defined entirely by the nuclear winter. Crops fail globally. The few animals that survive the initial chaos face the same food scarcity as humans. Water sources in contaminated regions are unusable without treatment. Wood burning, one of the obvious survival heating solutions, is limited by the fact that forests in many regions are dead or burning. But humans are adaptive. They always have been. Historical analogs, the Black Death, the collapse of the Bronze Age, the aftermath of World War II, consistently show that human communities, when they can find each other and organize, survive things that seem unsurvivable from the outside. The question is never whether humanity survives, it's which humans. And what determines that isn't luck. It's preparation, location, and community. The single most important survival factor in a nuclear exchange is how far you are from a target. Military bases, major cities, ports, communication hubs, power grid infrastructure. These are targets. Know what's within 50 miles of you. If you are within blast or primary fallout range of a major target and you have any warning time, even 30 minutes, putting distance between you and that target in a direction perpendicular to the wind is the highest value action you can take. If you cannot evacuate, shelter matters enormously. The best protection factor comes from the center of a large concrete or brick building below ground. A basement in a brick or concrete structure reduces radiation exposure by a factor of 40 compared to being outside. A sub-basement reduces it by 200. You need at minimum 2 weeks of food and water for the most dangerous fallout window. Know this in advance, not when the sirens are going off. Nuclear fallout contaminates surface water. Running water from a tap connected to a pre-attack reservoir may be safe initially, but surface water, rivers, lakes, ponds, must be assumed contaminated in fallout zones. Stored water is your bridge to safety. A gravity-fed filtration system removes particulate fallout from water, though it does not remove dissolved radioactive ions. In post-fallout water sourcing, deep wells are far safer than surface sources. Know your water options in advance. Potassium iodide tablets are widely recommended in nuclear preparedness guidance, and they are genuinely useful for one specific thing. They saturate your thyroid gland with stable iodine, so it cannot absorb radioactive iodine-131, which is released in nuclear detonations and causes thyroid cancer. They do not protect against gamma radiation, blast effects, or any other form of nuclear fallout harm. They are one tool in a larger kit, not a survival solution by themselves. They are available over the counter and inexpensive. Have them. In a nuclear winter scenario, every stored food supply eventually runs out. The survivors who make it through years 2 and 3 are the ones who can grow food in degraded conditions. Reduced light, lower temperatures, shorter seasons. Cold hardy crops, kale, turnips, potatoes, winter wheat, can grow in conditions that would destroy most warm season crops. Understanding cold frame growing, root cellaring, seed saving, and small animal husbandry is not a hobby in this scenario. It is the difference between year 2 and not having one. I want to leave you with something that isn't despair, because I don't think despair is the honest response to this information. Nuclear weapons have existed for 80 years. In that time, despite dozens of close calls, miscalculations, and moments of genuine crisis, they have not been used in war since 1945. That's not an accident. It's the result of deliberate human choices, imperfect institutions, and, frankly, a lot of luck. But luck is not a strategy, and the uncomfortable truth is that the systems designed to prevent nuclear war are human systems, built by imperfect people, vulnerable to miscalculation, and dependent on the rational behavior of every actor involved, in every crisis, forever. That's a very long time to ask everything to go right. The people who think seriously about nuclear risk, the arms control experts, the physicists, the former military commanders who've spent careers inside these systems, are not the ones shouting about inevitability. They're the ones quietly, persistently arguing for reduction, for treaties, for the slow, unglamorous work of making the world a little less dangerous than it was yesterday. And on the personal level, the level this channel lives at, the same principle applies. The people who navigate catastrophe best are not the ones who panicked, and not the ones who looked away. They're the ones who looked directly at the hard thing, understood it clearly, and made decisions from that clarity. That's what we're doing here. Look directly. Understand clearly, decide wisely. I'll see you in the next one. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss a single apocalyptic scenario. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.